And with that, let's bring in the party chairs. Debbie Wasserman Schultz for the Democrats, Reince Priebus for the Republicans. Welcome to you both. And Chairman Wasserman Schultz, let me begin with you. A lot of evidence piling up that this could be a big Republican night, gains in the House, closing in on control of the Senate. Has President Obama been just too heavy an anchor for the Democrats?
You know, I'm very proud of this president, George, because he's taken us from the worst economic crisis that we've faced since the Great Depression through 55 straight months of job growth in the private sector. That is the longest sustained period of job growth in American history. Just the other day, on Thursday, we showed the second straight quarter of significant economic growth, 3.5% GDP growth. We have created more jobs in manufacturing than any time since the 1990s, and we're continuing to make progress.
That message is not taking hold. We just saw this new poll coming out of one of the key states overnight, Iowa. Joni Ernst, the Republican candidate, 51 to 44% over Bruce Braley. That's a state President Obama won. Harry Reid, the Democratic leader in the Senate, says he will not be the Democratic leader if Joni Ernst wins. Do you agree?
I think we're going to hold the Senate. And the reason that we're going to hold the Senate, George, is because we have a ground game that I know Reince would take ours over theirs any day of the week. I mean, we've got early vote numbers that are up in the most competitive states and the most competitive districts all across the country. We've focused on making sure that we bring our numbers up for voters who didn't cast ballots in 2010 but voted for the president in 2008 and 2012. And I'll tell you what's going on here in Florida. I've been here for the last several days. I've seen really the most enthusiasm and the best organized ground game I've ever seen in a midterm in Florida. That's why Rick Scott is going to go down to defeat on Tuesday, and will elect the first Democratic governor in the 21st century when Charlie Crist is elected.
Priebus, you worry the Democrats are going to beat you on the ground?
Well, the problem they have is that their message isn't working, and our ground game is whipping their ground game. If you look at Colorado, we're up by 105,000 votes right now. Cory Gardner's tied with women with Mark Udall. We're winning Hispanic voters in Colorado. We're whipping them in Arkansas. We're at a dead even early vote right now in Iowa. We were down by 21,000 votes in Iowa in early vote in 2010. Joni Ernst is up by 7. According to Des Moines Register yesterday. We're winning, obviously, in Montana, West Virginia, South Dakota. I haven't even talked about Alaska, Louisiana, and then we're going to see what's going to happen in North Carolina, New Hampshire.
You know, this may be a rejection election of those in power, but how about the continuing problems with the Republican brand? Our new ABC News Washington Post poll shows 72% disapproval for Republicans in Congress. Well, and Rand Paul, one of your potential presidential candidate, was very blunt this week. He said the Republican Party brand sucks. What do you say to Rand Paul and those voters?
Listen. Well, I mean, I'm very close with Rand. We just did a conference call together 2 days ago with our campus captains across the country. And
what do you make of what he said?
And we both have talked about this across the country. Well, what he said is that we're actually on the right track, and actually we're doing a lot of the things that we should be doing, which is engaging Hispanic voters, black voters, Asian voters, talking to women across the country, not just for 4 months before an election, but for 4 years, the things I've been talking about, and by the way, leading the way on in our party for the last 2 years. And if I don't know if you've been looking at the polls, but we're winning with women in Kentucky. Actually, McConnell is winning with women against Allison Grimes. Cotton is winning with women against Mark Pryor in Arkansas. So what Rand Paul is saying is what I've been saying, which is we have spent way too long as a national party showing up at the end, and we've got to do better. And that's why when he made those comments, he made them at the Black Engagement Office in Detroit that we pay for.
Congresswoman, so, let me take another question.
We're going to have a good night. We're going to have a great night, and it's going to be.
If the Republicans do have the great night that Reince Priebus is talking about, and as I said, there's a lot of evidence they will, won't that demand a course correction from President Obama?
Well, look, George, going into Tuesday, I'll stack up our ground game against Reince's ground game. And like I said, he's been trying to throw as much money as he could to stand up a ground game. I know he'd take ours over theirs. We're doing much better in North Carolina and New Hampshire. We've got candidates across the country who are focused on the issues important to the middle class and working families. And the Republicans have doubled down on obstruction and extremism. I'd stack up our policies of increasing the minimum wage and making sure that we can fight for equal pay for equal work, which Republicans oppose. I'd stack up our surrogates. We've got President Obama, Vice President Biden, Secretary Clinton, President Clinton, and they've got Rand Paul, Chris Christie, and Ted Cruz. So going into Election Day, the advantages that we have are superior to the ones the Republicans have. The most important things that voters will be asking themselves is who has my back? And they will consistently across the board say Democrats have their back. And that's why in a midterm election like this one, where normally the president's party loses an average of 29 seats, these races are extremely close. And when we keep races close in midterms like this, Democrats win.
Finally, Mr. Chairman,
that's what's going to happen on
If
Tuesday.
Republicans don't take the Senate on Tuesday, is it a failure?
I think we have to take the Senate. Yeah, I would be very disappointed. But, you know, here's the thing. I don't know why Debbie keeps using this have your back line. I'm not going to go there again. But I would encourage the media to actually look at what the DNC is actually spending on the ground with this ground game. The DNC, in reality, in this midterm, is not our competition. It's the Senate Democrat Committee that's putting the ground game together, not the DNC and not what Debbie's talking about. And we're winning on the ground. You can just look at early vote, absentee ballot voting. And their message isn't working. So if they have such a great message about all these things that Debbie's rattled off, then they should be winning across